Hello everybody, this is MonteCristo, and this vlog is going to be about a Reddit post that the president of Riot, Tryndamere, Mark Merrill, made in regard to an interview by Skara with Andy Din, also known as Reginald, about the state of the patch on 6.15 and the changes made, as well as the monetization of the teams. I will link the interview below so you guys can take a look at that. I will also link the post as well as the updated edited post by Tryndamere below. Now, this is going to require pretty much that you watched my previous vlog about how teams make revenue in the esports sector, which is very important to understand because it made me, let's say this, it made me very angry reading Tryndamere's post when you actually understand the limited ways that teams have to make money and to monetize within the League of Legends, particularly the LCS ecosystem. So I'll just put that right up here. Please watch that first if you're actually interested in this. And now we're going to go into a point-by-point breakdown. And we're really going to take a look at the unedited version of this post because it's a lot more straightforward, I think, in his meaning, and when he edited it, you guys can look at it as well, but I think he tries to basically obfuscate, hide some of the points, the strong points that he was trying to make, and the accusations that Merrill was making against some of the owners, and in particular, Andy Reginald in this instance. So, let's take a look at this, and there's a lot to unpack here, guys. It's going to be a long video, so bear with me. Love me some Regi. Oh, he's the good guy already. Scoot over right here. But if he's so concerned about the financial health of his players, maybe he should spend some more of the millions he has made / makes from League of Legends on paying them instead of investing in other esports where he is losing money. Now, this is a line that I have heard parroted by many people in the Riot esports department. The belief at Riot is that team owners have used League of Legends and the money they get through the League of Legends teams from their very limited, of course, I don't need to safeguard my browser, ABG. The money that they make from League of Legends to basically prop up esports teams in other games, other markets where they are not profitable. I don't know how Riot got this idea. They never asked me as a team owner how I was doing, where my sponsorship money was coming from, and I would have told them that for me personally, and I think this is true of many teams, that sponsorship in CSGO and the potential of Overwatch was much more exciting for sponsors, and it was getting increasingly difficult to field good sponsorships and make good money off of an LCS team. Now, I also talked to a bunch of other owners today, and as far as I can tell, Riot has never asked any owner to open their books, to show them where the money is coming in from for their businesses. They've never asked. So I don't even know how he can possibly know that they are losing money by investing money in other esports, and they are making all their money off of League of Legends. That is not something that, as far as I can tell, anybody at Riot Games knows. So that immediately raised some major red flags for me. Nobody, as I said in my previous video, is making millions of dollars from the LCS right now. It is very expensive to run an LCS team, and there are not enough forms of revenue in League of Legends to really make it worthwhile. You compare it to CSGO, where teams actually make a lot of money off of stickers. When I had both my League and CSGO team, I made about 10 times as much money on CSGO stickers as I did on icon sales for the LCS because, frankly, player icons are not that interesting and it's not a good product. There's no way for the teams to get a share of the revenue in game. But primarily, the problem is that the LCS is a marketing tool for Riot Games, okay? And Riot has said over the years, oh, we just do it because we love esports. It's a feature for our players to get them all pumped up. This is something that we lose money on. I don't believe that for a second, and neither should you or anybody else. Why does every developer of a competitive title seem to be wanting to get into esports? It would be terrible business across the entire industry for everybody to be involved in esports and for them all to be losing oodles of money. If you stop and think about it for just half a second, you could think about how much bullshit this is. Basically, Riot has a ton of internal metrics. They must. They need to know how they make money. That's the entire point of their business, is these microtransactions. So they know, for example, when a player clicks through from the client into an LCS stream, into LCS content, they can look how much money has this person spent. When there's an LCS match on and a player plays a new skin, I promise you they have numbers that say, oh, look at how much our sales increased in the 24 hours after the LCS of a specific skin that was played in the game. I promise you they have these numbers. This means that there is a direct financial incentive for Riot to be doing esports. And I am very much inclined to believe that it is highly profitable for them. Can they 100% track down those metrics? Absolutely not. It's marketing. It's impossible to say exactly how much money they're making off of it. But when you stop to think for a second, why doesn't Riot seem to ever get any sponsors? Well, it seems to me that they don't want sponsors because they don't want anything at all distracting from the product of the LCS. What they want you to do is to focus on the game itself, focus on the skins, focus on the sales that they mention and that they bring up on the stream pretty regularly. I remember casting at Worlds, and one of the things I had to do with the rest of the casters was create a skin pack for every week, or a champion pack of the top champions, which they offered at discounted rates over the course of the World Championship, and they promoted on the analyst desk. So there must be a pretty distinct correlation between Riot's monetization and esports, as well as every major company, Valve, Blizzard, Hi-Rez, all these big companies that run very expensive esports circuits. So who is actually making the money here? It's Riot. There is no revenue sharing from sponsors. There is no revenue sharing from these microtransactions that they are capable of tracking through the client for the team owners. They don't have millions of dollars. Riot Games is the one who is making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of esports. And if they are not, then they probably should be getting some more of those sponsors, because that's just bad business. But I don't think that a company like Tencent would be allowing Riot just to burn money with no return whatsoever. And it probably would have stopped years ago if it wasn't profitable for Riot. So that myth needs to be disposed of immediately. When every other major company is doing it, are they doing it to the level of Riot, i.e. producing in-house? Maybe not yet, but if Riot wasn't making that money, they could certainly sell the broadcasting rights to a third party who would get sponsors and monetize it that way. The game is huge. They absolutely have that option if they want to. They don't want to because fundamentally they want the focus to be on the game, the skins, so you will purchase things in League of Legends, because that is directly how they profit the most. This is not shared with the teams. So why aren't you, Mark Merrill, giving the players more money? You have not given the teams themselves the revenue streams to be able to pay the players more. Okay? And just on its face, this is so silly. In a system where relegations exist, teams will always be trying to pay the players the maximum amount they can that makes sense, because otherwise you lose everything. People are going to be trying to spend the money to get the best players because the fear of relegation is there. If there was no relegation, if this was a locked franchise league, then maybe some team owners would pay garbage salaries, field a garbage team, and just try and rake in the cash as a result of sponsorships just for the visibility of being in the LCS. But considering there's a constant danger, I don't think the team owners were really considering not paying the players what they were worth. And the players make a lot of money right now. And the LCS high-end contracts go up to about $200,000 a year. So the players are not getting screwed right now. All the players are making decent money. I don't think anybody makes league minimum or anywhere close to it at this point in time. So in the system of relegation, you can't really accuse the team owners of not spending the appropriate amount of money on the professional players, because the relegation system sort of ensures that there is going to be high competition for good players and the players are going to make a decent wage. So now that's out of the way, I just think it's also just a ridiculous tone to take for him. But if he's so concerned about the financial health of his players, maybe he should spend more of the money. Maybe if you're concerned with the financial health of the players, Tryndamere, you should pay them more money. Maybe you should raise a stipend. You haven't raised a stipend for the players since 2013. And the league has gotten so much bigger than that. Why don't you pay the players more money if this is the hill you want to die on? You have that power. Your company made $1.6 billion last year. You pay them. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Regi is generally one of the good guy team owners. I hate this about Riot. They're like some sort of fucked up tyrant Santa Claus where you get put on the naughty or nice list for all time. And they decide, he is good, he is bad. I guess Regi's one of the good guys. I don't really know what that means in this context, but I guess he's liked by Riot and they have deemed him good. But there is still a long way to go to help get all of our owners into a better state where the balance of power between players and owners is a bit more equitable. It's not our call, nor should it be, to determine market pricing for players, but when owners don't want to shell out for top talent, that's a tricky problem. Now, in my last video I explained, people are shelling out for top talent. The venture capitalists came in, player salaries doubled to tripled. Regi is definitely paying his players very well. He is at the very top end of the ecosystem in League of Legends. The players are getting paid good salaries. And in fact, I think currently, because of the venture capital, that players have more power than the owners because they can basically demand salaries that are outside the scope of the market because somebody will come in and pay them at a loss, right? People will intentionally lose money in this space right now because they want to build a brand to grow into esports as Nike and Coke and the non-endemic sponsors start sponsoring teams. And the market explodes because that's been all of the predictions, financial predictions that we've seen for esports is just this insane growth. So people want to get in. They'll lose a little bit of money now to make a lot of money later on, right? So I just don't even know what to say about this. The owners are shelling out to the maximum possible degree right now for top talent. They are. I was doing it. It broke my budget on Renegades to do it. I did not anticipate having to spend anywhere near as much money as I did. The players are being paid well. So I don't even know where this is coming from. Also, this is going to be a sidebar. And this is a really important conversation that I haven't brought up yet, but it has to come out now. This entire statement is so ridiculous that it's time to really talk about some other issues that are happening within the broader esports ecosystem. So, quote, "It's not our call to determine market pricing for players, but when owners don't want to shell out for top talent, that's a tricky problem." Mark Merrill, you are not shelling out for top talent. And what I mean by that is the casters. There's a very large problem with caster compensation in League of Legends. Currently, Riot Games is definitely not on the forefront of caster compensation. And a lot of people, this does go back to the freelance rates for MSI, where Doa and Papa Smithy and I all declined to go to MSI because Riot was offering caster rates that were about 40 to 70% of market value. And this was across Halo, CSGO, Hearthstone, Dota 2, and StarCraft 2. I talked to casters from all these games, got rates for various events, realized that Riot had been dramatically underpaying me previously. I took these numbers to Riot. I said, please pay me an industry standard rate. They said no. I said, okay, that's fine. You don't want to pay an industry standard rate. I don't do the work. That's fine. Okay. So that was all fine. If Riot doesn't want to pay me to do the work at a level where freelance casters get paid in other games, that is their prerogative. But what we are going to talk about now is how Riot compensates their own casters. So currently, Riot's casters are extremely undercompensated. Over the years, I've talked to many of them. And basically, CSGO is probably the highest average paid caster right now because of the introduction of Turner and E-League and the rest of the circuit. But currently, CSGO casters, I would estimate for this year, some of the top-end CSGO casters will make twice as much money as any Riot caster. And people might say, well, they're full-time employees, they get benefits, etc. Doesn't really make up for the gap in pay. Moreover, this is a talent industry. And when he says, this is key, owners don't want to shell out for top talent. We should be treated as freelancers, like actors, like broadcasters. That's how everybody else in esports besides Riot Games operates, right? ESL has some people on salary, but there are differences we'll get into in a minute. We need to be paid like talent, with talent contracts, with stipulations. That's what I have with OGN. I get paid a flat salary from OGN, but I can also make money by doing Riot events, by doing ESL events, by doing all of these other events around the world. I can stream for money. I can have a subscription on my stream. I can play ads. I can monetize Twitch. I can monetize YouTube. I can make my own shows. I can build up my own YouTube channels. All of this stuff, I can get sponsorships. All of this stuff are things that I can do. I can own a team in the NALCS. I made more money from casting alone than any Riot caster did in 2015. Riot casters, according to Riot, they get a flat fee, flat salary, and this doesn't change no matter how much they do. If they just do LCS, they get the same amount of money as if they did MSI and Worlds. That's basically 2 months of extra work, hard work. Now, Riot casters, they don't have any kind of opportunity. Facebook notification. Speaking of Riot casters, they don't have any opportunities outside of the Riot system. When a Riot caster, for example, goes to cast an IEM, they are basically given for free on loan by Riot. For free. Riot casters do that work for free. Every other caster at ESL events is either paid directly by ESL by being part of the company, or they are compensated as freelancers. Riot casters cannot monetize any of their stream content. If you join Riot and you have a bunch of subscribers on Twitch, you have to get rid of them. That's part of the deal. You're not compensated for this exclusivity at all. You can't really make your own YouTube content. They don't like their casters building up any kind of YouTube brand or stream following whatsoever. You can't get sponsors. And this is very important because talent needs to be treated like talent. If Tryndamere is advocating for a free market, because his assertion is that if Regi is making millions of dollars, why doesn't this trickle down to the players at all? Well, the same thing can be said of the casters in your league, Tryndamere. They don't get paid the same as me for casting, and you put them in a little box. And they can't get out. They can't help to build up their own following. They can't do any kind of independent content without Riot producing it. And think about how much awesome content we've lost over the years because guys like Jat and Kobe and Deficio can't just go out and make their own YouTube and monetize it. They can't do the VOD reviews that I do and make money off of it on Twitch. Wouldn't it be great to have years of this content from these excellent casters and analysts? Of course it would. Where's the harm in that? Riot lets the pro players stream for money. So Riot themselves are not treating talent like talent. The caster system is incredibly messed up right now. The casters can't even cast other games, so they have no way to escape this shitty contract that they're in. It's not even a contract, it's just employment. And that's not how any talent industry works. People like to compare casting to a day job. It isn't a day job. It's a talent job. It needs to function like the acting, the film industry, the broadcasting industry has always functioned. Right? So the hypocrisy going on here of trying to call out other people on mistreating talent and not shelling out for that talent is so awful when you consider the situation that some of my friends, the Riot casters, are in. And I'm sure some of the Riot casters will deny all of this, but they don't actually know how the broader industry works because they aren't freelancers. They don't really bother to talk to other casters. I mean, for example, last year, I knew Dota casters who were making at TI in 3 weeks as much money as 6 months of pay from a Riot caster for one event. It's really bad. So, Tryndamere, seriously, get your own shit in order and you start treating talent like talent. We've done a lot historically to help support the bottom end of the ecosystem to help minimize the scenarios where bad teams/owners can exploit players, and we look forward to continuing to do more to help at the other end of the spectrum too, such as for stars. Now, this is true historically. Yes, in 2013 you created subsidies. These subsidies have not increased with the exception of adding a coach subsidy. Player subsidies haven't increased, and yes, you did help out. But no one's paying at the bottom end of the ecosystem anymore. That doesn't happen, at least not in NALCS that I know of. And I would be shocked if it was. EU, don't know. NA, pretty damn sure it doesn't. No one is exploiting the players right now. I think all of the owners that are currently in the NALCS have a very player-first mentality. I don't really think that anybody is getting screwed. It seems like a lot of the new ownership... Of course, we don't know really who Cloud9 sold to, so that's... But I don't think Jack is going to sell to somebody, knowing him, that would abuse the players that were formerly his, that he cares about, that are Cloud9 legacy players. I find that just really difficult to believe. So I don't really know what you're saying here. Yes, you have done historically, but you have fallen behind. Team costs have risen 2-3 times what they were in 2013. And there's been nothing by Riot. There has been no sponsorship revenue sharing for the league. There's been no additions to in-game content that teams can monetize in some way, such as skins or, who knows, other things that players could buy in games that could help the teams. And the sponsors are tapped out. The endemic sponsors, they're not going to give any more money for League of Legends. But the player salaries are just at the max right now. Most teams are losing money. Maybe one or two team has a razor-thin profit off of the LCS right now. But it's totally false that teams are making millions of dollars off the LCS. And then we go into gameplay, guys. Patch timing. Agree we need to be cognizant of it, and that last year's timing for the Juggernaut update was suboptimal. This year, though, we intentionally prioritized game health and viewer experience, cool bot lane fights and early game aggression, over the ability for teams/coaches to field safer comps by lane swapping. I don't even know what to say. You played 18 best of threes in a regular season, and then you entirely changed the meta for the playoffs. You screwed up. Don't do this in the middle of the season. I don't like the changes fundamentally, but they are appalling to have in a competitive scenario. No sport would change the rules after the regular season is concluded, because that's what the teams have played on, that's what they fought over. We got our rankings for the playoffs, which teams are going to relegation, because of that patch. You can't just change the rules. It's a different game now. It's so different than it was before. We tend to think this has worked well based on the amount of 5-game series we've seen and how bloody games have been in general. It's not like it is a big adaptation for players to do standard lanes. Entirely false. Every player that I have ever spoken to about this patch has hated it. Hated it. The game itself is not as strategically deep as it used to be. And it is a huge adaptation to do standard lanes because you practice for 50% of your games doing non-standard lanes. It's huge. Coaches/owners are complaining about it because it makes it harder for them to hide certain lineup/skill deficits they may have on their rosters. Mark, you are aware that lane swapping was actually a skill, right? It was a very complex skill that required a ton of communication between team members, coordination, decisions about who was going to get the farm. That was a skill. Okay? You are defining skill as being skill in solo queue. Okay? That was not applicable to the professional game in many, 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 many cases. And lane swaps were one of them. Also, teams built rosters around the lane swap meta. Perhaps a team made a decision and said, you know what, this support player isn't very good in lane, but if we're only in lane 50% of the time and he's really good at shot calling in the lane swap, maybe we'll sign this guy. Okay, maybe we'll get this guy instead of somebody who's just a 2v2 god. That was a decision that teams made coming into the season when they started their rosters. Also worth noting that there was a roster lock before playoffs, so even if teams realized, ooh, shit, like, we're not going to be doing well in this meta, they were absolutely unable to change players, sign new players, do anything because their rosters were locked. So you totally screwed them. They had no opportunity to adapt. And now a lot of teams, their relegations, their chances at Worlds are all riding on this decision that you made. So I don't know where this idea of skill came from. These were decisions that had to be made when you created that lineup, and there are always trade-offs when you're making a lineup with players, and teams definitely made that trade-off when they thought about how the early game was going to go. Otherwise, I imagine a lot of owners would have made some different decisions about players. In our opinion, like the above, they need to continue to develop talent and pay them. That is just like a non sequitur. Like, that doesn't have anything to do with what you said. We do not mind at all if there is a massive delta in compensation between the top players and the rookies. Can you just use the word difference? That's a normal human being word to use. So if you're a double lift Biofrost and can do well in standard lanes against the best in the world, more shit that he can't know because we've yet to see double lift and Biofrost against the best in the world. Just a out of left field whack comment. Don't be shy about recognizing your value in your negotiations with your team owner. Players have gotten pretty good at negotiating with team owners in my personal experience. I don't really think that's an issue. But this is not... Just because you have an idea of what skill is, Mark, doesn't mean that there weren't other skills in a different meta. And considering you entirely changed the game, it's not fair to the professional teams. If you want a medal like this, do it right after Worlds so that teams have an idea of what's going to be coming up for the years when they lock their contracts. Because right now, if you are a team owner, your rules, Riot, state that I have to sign a player until November. That is the minimum length of contract that I am allowed to sign with a professional player under Riot's system. So if I'm making a decision until after Worlds, come December, and I'm making a decision for the next 11 months, I need to have some idea of what that meta is going to be. Otherwise, it's just totally fucking crazy, throws everything off balance, and we end up with teams that may have not gotten relegated or may have not gotten to Worlds under one meta, get there just because things change randomly halfway through the season, because you don't like what's going on. And this goes back to the other point. Why did Riot hate lane swaps so much? Because it didn't look like solo queue. It didn't, when a casual player tuned in, it didn't look like what they were used to. It didn't look like the environment that they played in. Now, why would Riot be concerned about that? Because League of Legends was still a very exciting game to watch. I actually really liked the place the meta was in before patch 6.15. I thought it was quite good. And I think it goes back to, this is a marketing tool, right? The way Riot fundamentally makes money is because this is a marketing tool where people, they want to see what the solo queue game is at the professional level. And that when you watch it, you shouldn't be confused, because if it confuses people, they turn it off, and then they don't buy that fancy new skin that they didn't know existed before they saw Bjergsen or Double Lift play it, right? So I don't buy the lack of action. In terms of lane swaps, I've seen tons of boring games so far in 2v2 and 1v1 lanes. There were also very, conversely, bloody lane swap games. So that doesn't have anything to do with it. And I think it all just goes back to Riot trying to cram the professional scene into being the most efficient marketing tool and method of making money for Riot Games possible. And it just makes me so frustrated to see the owners being blamed for this, because they have had so little power over how to monetize their teams. Riot refuses to get sponsors. Riot refuses to sell the broadcast rights. Riot refuses to give the teams equity in the league so that they have some form of revenue generation besides a small amount of merchandise and sponsors. And not only that, but sponsors don't even get very good visibility on LCS because they have to wear the huge noise canceling headsets because Riot refuses to build booths. I will make a video about that in a day or two. So any headset sponsor just gets no visibility in the league at all. Obviously hard to see keyboard and mice with the cameras the way they are. So basically it's like shirt logos. And I'm here to tell you that shirt logos, that doesn't sell for a lot to a sponsor. You have to do other deliverables as well, which is also hilarious because if he's talking about millions of dollars, it's the teams that do shit outside of the LCS that makes the sponsorship money. What the sponsors get on the stream is a logo. The teams have to go the extra mile, making the reality television shows, making the ads, making the content on YouTube, making tweets, etc. The banners on the streams. This is what makes the money. It doesn't have anything to do with LCS monetizing itself, right? That's the problem, is that the system is creating, via sponsorships, extra burden on the teams outside, which takes away from practice time, which takes away from professional play leisure time, because this is the only way to make money. So Riot and you, Mark Merrill, because sponsorships are the only way, you are making player lives worse. You are causing them to turn away from practice. You are causing it to cut into their personal time, their vacation time, because they have to go to events to promote sponsors, because they have to go to a photo shoot to promote sponsors. And that's how they make their salary. It's not extra money. That's how you make your salary, and that's the only way to do it. So step up, Riot Games. And this level of posting is absolutely unacceptable. It shows a fundamental lack of understanding of everything else that goes on in the esports space. I spend a lot of my time working in other facets of esports. People don't know this, but the majority of my income doesn't come from casting. It comes from esports projects that I am working on and that I can't currently tell you about. Okay? I do a lot across many esports. And I'm telling you, you are out of touch and you have no idea what is going on with League of Legends compared to other games. So step it up, get it together, because otherwise the team owners, I don't even know what they're going to do. But it's not a viable space any longer, not really, and things absolutely must change. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Sorry this was so harsh, but I just could not believe this statement and the ignorance contained therein. So see you guys later, hopefully for a happier time in the future.